We are live.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's nice to see you again.
I see you again. It look like you're getting
Is
some
this
some
number three?
haircuts. Four.
Is this number three? This is four.
Episode four. Episode
Where
four.
where
We're on
can people watch?
episode four.
Where can people watch these amazing episodes if they want to?
We have the X channel, checks and balances on X. And then we have YouTube. So it's on YouTube too. We gotta get our subscribers up on YouTube. So I'm gonna post and all that good stuff. But and
Nice.
Facebook. You guys can watch it on CFR Facebook, so people can understand that we're talking to an expert here. We're talking to an actual attorney who passed the bar, who went to school to do this. Qualified, no DEI. All right,
Have
y'all.
represented people in courts for 15 years, federal and state, on criminal, civil, and immigration cases.
Exactly. See all that. All right. So, welcome to Checks and Balances, where history, law, and modern America intersect. I'm Zoe, and I'm here with my co-host, Attorney John Heiderscheidt, aka John H. In today's episode, we're breaking down two major political and legal battles, one at the federal level and one right here in Chicago. First, the U.S. House has narrowly passed the Save America Act, a bill that will overhaul federal election rules by requiring documentary proof of citizenship, national voter ID standards. Supporters say it's about election integrity and restoring public confidence. Critics argue it could create new barriers for eligible voters and place heavy administrative burdens on states. We'll break down what the Constitution actually says about federal versus state control of elections and what legal challenges could be next. Then we shift to Chicago, Showdown, where a political showdown is unfolding over newly legalized video gambling. The city council lifted the long-standing ban as part of the 2026 budget to generate revenue, but now there's a power struggle between the council and the mayor's office over whether and how it should be implemented. This raises important questions about executive authority, city finances, and the legal limits of mayoral power. As always, this isn't just about politics, it's about the law, the Constitution, and the structure of power behind the headlines. Let's get into it. All right, so the U.S. House narrowly passed the Save America Act yesterday, February 11th, 2026. The vote was 218 to 213, largely along party lines. The bill now moves to the Senate, where it faces an uncertain path due to the filibuster threshold. Uh, you got any input on that?
Well, I have tons of input on it, and we could talk about that plenty. And, we always love it when people shout out questions while we're talking. So please feel
Right.
free if you're with us on Facebook or you're with us on Insta or another social platform and you have some questions about this, please shout them out. I'll do my best to answer them in a way that I think is reflective of the accurate status of the law today.
Right.
Um, you know, I, I mean, I see the meme I see all the time is like, I need identification to use my credit card. I need identification to take out a mortgage. I need identification to go to the bank. I need identification for to get a firearm if I want to get a firearm in Illinois. All those different things, and this really, when you look at polling, seems to be a 70-30, 80-20, even 90-10 issue, depending on what categories or groups of voters that you're polling, what groups of people that you're polling. I don't want to see I don't want to see legislation that said, well, bring your driver's license and two pieces of mail and a passport and have a vial of blood
Right.
and you're ready to do a DNA. So there's an element of fairness in the criticism that too many arbitrary barriers can disenfranchise people from the most sacred right that there is, which is expressing your opinion in an election. So reasonable minds will disagree a little bit, and we'll see what the final product of legislation is. But I don't think anybody really seriously has a quarrel with the idea that you ought to show your ID when you walk into the polling place. There ought to be some mechanism for being able to say that your voice corresponds with this vote, or your voice hasn't been, you haven't chosen to use your voice in this election, so there is no vote. The much bigger question to me is, what are we going to do about VBM? There's the Supreme Court is going to have to finally address this stuff directly. There's a case in front of it right now originating out of Mississippi. And the big
What's VBM?
Say that again?
You said VBM?
Vote by mail.
Vote by mail. Okay. So VBM.
The case is 24-1260. It's Watson v. RNC out of Mississippi, for anybody that's following it. But this real question about what is the time period that's written into the Constitution and written into our federal statutes about when an election can take place. And this idea of, generally speaking, Congress is able to set up a framework around elections, and they've done so. And that's why we elect Congress people and senators and presidents on the first Tuesday of November in even years. When those offices are up, the president is up every 4 years. But that's why they're put into that same date when that happens. And that's Congress exercising its authority under the Constitution and under statute to manage federal elections. But if we, for example, I don't like to fuel tons of conspiracy theories or anything. You always see those graphs where like the red vote tick is going like this, and then the blue tick comes in and goes like this when the mail-in ballots come in. But, there's the idea of not just what's happened, but the appearance of propriety. Whether nothing untoward at all has gone on in any single VBM count, vote by mail count, in any state or federal election in the last 6 years or 8 years or whatever it is. And we have had absentee ballots, for people who are truly infirm, for people who are, overseas and serving in the military, but their voice deserves to be heard. But there's not really a ton of historical precedent for the idea that we're just going to send our votes by mail and they can be collected anytime really that a state wants to, and then bring them into the tally. And now instead of having tallies I'm old enough to remember when we got election results on election night. And that was back when we did it the old-fashioned way, the paper way, when people were just counting paper ballots when it wasn't digitized. I do have vague memories of that. It's not like vote by mail in the capacity and the scope or the scale that we've had has been around a long time. But let's talk about a high school election. Let's just talk about theoretically a high school election. Then two people are running to be school board president or whatever. And the election is for Thursday afternoon. And so they have 100 votes, and 45 are for one, 45 are for the other. Oh, well, 10 kids were sick. And then another few kids are registered but haven't left. Well, one of the kids' parents drives the truck of those ballots over to the high school, and look, the ballots all say my kid won. What are the odds? And I think we can understand the appearance of impropriety around this is really problematic. And gives no confidence around mass vote by mail, gives no true confidence to voters in their election. And everybody's entitled to make their arguments. We'll see what the Supreme Court says. They're ultimately going to have to weigh in, and I think they'll have some really important decisions for us in the course of this election cycle. I do. And everybody's entitled to argue what they want to argue, but show me an election in the United States prior to 1980 that had vote by mail, that people could go and harvest whole communities' ballots and drive them into a mailbox and drop them in, and they'd be counted 25 days later. We didn't do that. Nobody did that. And okay,
Right.
COVID was here and that happened, and we had a national emergency and all the rest, and fine. I think we learned some lessons from COVID about what we shouldn't do again. And I think that, unfortunately, whether we're talking about this, whether we're talking about censorship, whether we're talking about Second Amendment rights, whether we're talking about the Safety Act, the idea is to destabilize this panoply of rights that has been available to us as a community of Americans since our inception. Gradually, it's been given more broadly to different classes of people, but and we have to do a better job of making sure that different communities feel that they are actively participating in the American dream, that it's not some far off thing, but something tangible that can be touched and accomplished, like home ownership, like having a job, like having health insurance, like starting families, like maybe entrepreneurship. Those are all really important things. But if we don't have elections that the community or that the nation has confidence in, all is lost. And that's the socialists' end game. And that's why I continuously tell people this election cycle is not Republicans versus Democrats. It's Republicans versus socialists. It's Republicans versus totalitarians. It's Republicans versus Marxist idealists that have hijacked the Democrat community and operate under their banner and are allowed to do so because a feckless media plays along, because the acrimony it creates profits for those media groups.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like we're fighting communism and then advertisement communism, advertisement monopoly, I guess.
And it's, why does that matter to me? Why do I care if we're socialist or capitalist or what? Socialist structures will increase your property tax rates by a figure of 9 to 10 multiples, while giving you a school system that's worse, while giving you a police force that won't protect you, and while socially engineering new cultural ecosystems in different neighborhoods through mass migration that is accomplished outside of the boundaries of the immigration law set up in the United States.
Right. Man. So do you think that if they pass the Save America Act once it gets to the Senate, do you think that will conflict with state election systems?
So definitely the federal Congress, under the Constitution and under different congressional statutes, have a wide swath of power and authority over elections. And under the law, I think that the Supreme Court will uphold the SAVE Act if it's passed. I don't think that they're going to get rid of that, particularly this Supreme Court is constituted. But let's talk about the Supreme Court for a second. The Supreme Court, we probably have a more conservative Supreme Court than we've had in 80 years. And we can argue about whether that's good or bad, but predictively, I think that they'll go along with whatever Congress says about elections. The states will fight back, particularly blue states will fight back, and there'll be litigation about it, and attorneys general will sue, and the Department of Justice and the Solicitor General of the United States will defend Congress's position, and it'll work its way up to the Supreme Court. But I think this is something that conservatives miss a lot, and for a long time I missed this too. It's one thing to say, okay, we have a conservative Supreme Court, so we don't have to worry about the craziest stuff because they'll strike it down. But I think what we miss in that analysis is the variable of media coverage. And so it's one thing for the Supreme Court to strike down laws that, especially to conservatives, appear on their face patently silly. But what that allows this media ecosystem to do across pretty much every channel except Fox News is say, oh, how terrible this is, and oh, how racist this is, and how we have to change the Supreme Court. And that's really effective with younger voters. And I think conservatives have to understand, in addition to needing to message better to the Black community, and in addition to needing to message better to different communities that we traditionally have not messaged to,
Right.
younger voters, because younger voters today are far more active and engaged civically than I ever remember in my upbringing, and anybody who's older than to me than I talk to, since maybe like Woodstock, the Vietnam era. And some of this
Mhm.
that we're going through is the same kind of generational change where we have, you know, more people have a voice today than have ever had before, and more people want different things than they've ever had before. And, you know, let's talk about the importance of the traditional family. That's not as important to the younger generation to have a traditional family unit of a mom and dad and 2 or 3 kids and the white picket fence. And that's not the dream of a younger generation, not for everybody. And that's fine. That's great. Whereas, some of the older generations, that was the model it was built off of. I want my house. I want my real estate. I want my family. I want my pension. I want my job. And that to the older generation is what the American dream looked like. And so I think some of the reason we have so much discontent right now or discord is because people's view of their own American dream is so radically different. And so many
Mhm.
different people have the opportunity to live that and say what they want and feel what they want. And then these things right here. We
Right.
all have our own printing press, checks and balances. This podcast is all over social media. Subscription Lawyer. We have a whole social media range of platforms that we're on, and you'll see us in legacy news sometimes, traditional media outlets sometimes. So, but we're all able to be our own printing press today. So there's more information and opinion out there than ever before. And I think that gets in the way too sometimes. But so your question is, I know that's like a 5-minute roundabout,
No, 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 no. We
but
need that. We need all
I,
that.
I think the Supreme Court will enforce what Congress chooses to do. And if Congress doesn't act, I don't think the Supreme Court is going to get involved in what the different states do. So we'll have to see how it plays out. It's certainly probably, as you stand back and take this election cycle at the 30,000-foot level, this is probably the most important issue that'll play out is how the court systems respond to what they're really going to do with vote by mail now that the pandemic is clearly over. We don't have another one in front of us. There's no exigency. And we'll see. We'll see what they say.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's going to pass the Senate. Yesterday, I was at the Republican Forum, the ABC, well, the League of Women of Chicago Voters put together.
Nice.
Yeah,
Great.
that was very good for that. But yeah, there was a few people that were thinking that it's not going to pass the Senate. But I'm gonna be hopeful. I'm gonna keep the good
Fetterman coming
energy.
out for it, in my opinion, was a big thing. I think Fetterman coming out for it may have gotten it past the finish line, but that Senate
Right,
is a snake pit. Who knows what
right.
those old ghouls are going to do?
But it doesn't
And
make any sense for you not to do it. Like, it's like at this point, if you are saying no to that because Trump has pushed that, Trump is in agreement with that, and he'll sign it immediately. How do you how are you going against that as well? It's like, okay, at this point, like I said, it's just a personal issue that you just can't stand him because you personally don't like Trump. And because at this point, regardless, red, blue, independent, not independent, a fan of Trump, not a fan of Trump, this is something that needs to be passed and it needs to be in law.
I definitely the Trump derangement syndrome is the phrase. You certainly run into voters and people who just like, if Trump cured cancer, they'd come out against the cure. And you
Right.
can't
He's
reason
making
with people like
millions.
that. To me, these, our elected officials are not so easily cowed. They, a lot of them are pretty sharp, and they got there by being pretty sharp, in some way, shape, or form, or being connected to the right people. And what is going to happen? Like a big question I ask myself, or continue to ask myself, maybe you have some opinions on it. What is going to happen with this party after Trump? And I think
Yeah.
there are some Republicans that stand to benefit a whole lot from expediting the end of Trump's efficacy as a president, particularly in the domestic sphere. And there's no quicker
Right.
way to do that than to engineer a Democrat takeover of the House, maybe even of the Senate, or get that right to 50-50. And if we have a Congress is responsible for all of this domestic policy. People like to get mad at the president. People like to get mad at the Supreme Court. We've had an absentee Congress that has let this place just stagnate and sit to the side and done nothing to improve it, and done nothing to modernize it, and done nothing to bring us into a digital era, and done nothing to modernize the systems of government to benefit the taxpayer, even though all the technology and capability is there.
Right.
They don't have the right prerogatives, they don't have the right priorities, and a lot of it is because lobbyists and special interest groups and all the rest, private wealthy people and the like, pay them not to do anything about it because it's cheaper that way. Well, we're at an inflection point in this country's history, and we all need to come together at the table and say, how are we going to make this work for everybody for the next 100 years?
No, no,
There's
you're
just
right.
so much, there's just so much money to be made in the interim from keeping this sinking ship afloat another 3 months, another 6 months, another 12 months. And a lot of the people making the votes on those bills are the ones putting envelopes of cash into their reelection bids or their fifth homes or wherever it comes from.
Right.
You see the amounts of money that these Congress people make and are worth, and you look at their salary, like what the quote unquote salary is, and it's just like, I'm not blind, I'm not stupid. Something untoward goes on. And whether it's quote unquote
Right.
legal under the system they've set up, well, what criminal isn't going to set up a system that justifies what they're doing? You know? And I just think that we need secure elections, of course, and there's nothing wrong with expecting a photo ID of somebody to vote. There's nothing wrong with
Right.
expecting an election be concluded on a day. Make it a national holiday. I'm all for that. I'm
Right.
all for that. Make it a national holiday. If you're worried about people on one day, make a law that says it's a 2-day national holiday, and you can vote at the polls in person on one of those 2 days. Like I'm open to creative, reasonable solutions. But
Yeah.
if this was a comic book movie, you would see the trucks of ballots going in to support the corrupt mayor, like at the 13th hour at midnight. And that's exactly what we see on TV. And whether anything untoward did or didn't happen, the American people deserve a process that has a lot more dignity to it than that, that's a lot more verifiable than that, and that we can all say at the end of election day, you know what? I got my say and it went my way or it didn't, but now I move on with my next 2 years or 4 years and I'll come back and do this again. Rather than having us at each other's throats for the 700 or 800 days in between elections about what did or didn't happen.
Yeah. No, no, that's true. And it's common sense. It's common sense. All right.
Well,
We are
it's
at the
80-20 issues are common sense. And this is an issue that like polls very consistently 70-30, 80-20.
exactly. All right, we gotta move on to the. We know you're a very busy man, so thank you for taking this
No,
time
thank
out of
you. I love
your.
hanging out with you. I love doing these podcasts. They're fun. I like when we get comments. I hope people learn something
Yeah,
from
a
it. And
lot. There's a lot.
I hope we
People
get some.
are.
I hope we keep getting people tuning in. It seems like the numbers grow each time we do it. So
Yeah, we just gotta. I gotta make sure we do it at 10 o'clock so I can put it out a week before to
okay,
let people know. So I
got
can.
it.
All right. So the alternative budget that was passed, that I thought that the mayor was going to veto it, but he didn't. But he still is vetoing it in his own way. So he made sure that CTU, well, CPS, whatever, Board of Education, whatever they want to say, but CTU got their $1 billion of TIF money. But in order for that to happen, and with the alternative budget, they allowed the TIF surplus, which I thought was dumb for them to do, but that's another time. Um, the 2026 budget also lifted the long-standing ban on video gambling. The move was intended to help address a major budget deficit. So far, and I was at City Hall yesterday for the Committee on Finance. So far, Brandon Johnson refuses to send the letter to the state to repeal. I mean, he probably wants to repeal it, but he's trying to figure out ways to repeal it, Brandon Johnson. But he has not sent the letter so they can lift the ban, so they can start getting money for the sweepstake machines, because right now they're illegal in Chicago and they're running illegally. There's 33 of them in the 27th ward that's being ran illegally, and we're not getting any of that money. So Mayor Brandon Johnson has expressed his opposition to the video gambling expansion. Personally, I'm not big. I don't think that the city of Chicago, the downtown area, but the city of Chicago alone should not have any type of casinos or gambling. I just think that the Chicago is just too dope. It has too much culture and too many other things to do that gambling is just. You can go to rivers, you know what I'm saying? You can go to Indiana to Horseshoe, but to have this in the city, no. But I also understand that gaming is a big thing because we were raised on gaming, video games, all those things. So people have these addictions or just like gaming. You know what I'm saying? They just like the excitement. They like to gamble. They like. So I understand that as well. And we're not getting any money from the sweepstake machines that are unlawful in this city.
Well, you know, welcome to the Windy City. Um, you touch on like 8 different things in there, and the gaming discussion. It's okay. I mean, that's how life is. It's not all in its neat little lane and box and easy. I mean, this is what society is what life is integrating with the community and getting in where you fit in, and figuring out what's right for you and what's not. I think when you take a step back, what's great about this country is we can all decide for ourselves in a free capitalist society what's right for us. Of course, I have experienced the thrill of betting on a football game here or there. I'm not what you call a serious gambler. I've never won $1 million at the casino in a night like JB on that lucky. I just went in and just magically the sweepstakes machine pops out the $1 million ticket for our governor.
Fargo.
What are the odds? The same luck that James Whitey Bulger had with the lottery one time. What are the odds? But I've gone I've put 20, 50, $100 on football games here and there, and I do like to do that. and it can be revenue for the city or the state if you work in if you have a capitalist structure and you invite coordination and cooperation from the groups that you're taxing. But you look at sports betting more broadly in the state of Illinois, and they're taxing that industry out of existence here. And it's like, why did you go through all of this to then turn around and tax it out of the state so that none of the people can benefit from that revenue? Now, at the same time, I recognize gambling, whether it's sweepstakes, whether it's throwing craps, whether it's cards, whatever you're doing, it is a vice. I think that's how government would classify it. It's a vice.
Mm-hmm.
There are people, as you mentioned, can get addicted to that, and it can cost mortgages, it can cost families, and what does that mean? More people on public subsidy rolls, which is a cost. So you have to be honest about that. I think at the end of the day, there's a way to incorporate these groups and come up with a structure that allows for responsible use, that allows for everybody to make money, that allows for the tax revenue to be used for the benefit of the community. I don't trust the yo-yos in charge here to do it right. Because the yo-yos in charge here, most of them are hardline, leftist, government is good, you get your rights from the government, everything flows through us first. And that's the wrong way to do it. And
it should be at certain places. Like, they shouldn't be at gas stations. Why are you hanging out in a gas station?
Well,
Why?
We talk about where is one of the primary targets for crime in the city? A gas station.
Right.
I was just over at the BP by Ida B. Wells and Dearborn because I was going to federal court in the morning for a habeas corpus case. And I pulled up and I parked and I got my gas. And the guy who was, the security guard there was coming back in. He had to just chase 3 or 4 people out because they had grabbed this or that. And, I don't know if they have a gaming machine in there, but what easier target is there than somebody who walks out of the gas station with $500 cash in their pockets? And I'll not only will I yank this car, I'll get myself some gas money too, real quick. Right. So I think there has to be something that's well thought out, and we don't have that today. At the same time, a state and a county and a city that is as broke as we are, and they can use all the 9-syllable words that they want to describe the debt crisis that they've created for us. And they can explain with their fancy socialist phrases how, we're the crazy ones for thinking that billions in debt is not some wealth building strategy, and that the city ought to have a wealth building strategy, because financial solvency is the key to public safety. Financial solvency is the key to attracting people to come back here. Financial solvency is the key to getting the central business district running again the way it should. Financial solvency is the only way to address the pension crisis that is going to crater this whole state and every home rule municipality and county in it if we don't get our arms around it. So, when you're broke, and there's a job or revenue opportunity, you have to look at it seriously. Right. And, we'll have to see what that is. But the first step for the people is to get serious leaders in office who will have the serious discussions that they are and come up with that framework. And it ties back to, if we don't have elections that we can trust, let alone elections that are actually corrupt, but if we don't have elections that society can trust, the whole point of modern democracy is gone anyways. It's already over. And there's nothing left for us to do but to disintegrate into anarchy and vengeance. And nobody's going to want to see that. I've only read about it in the history books. I don't particularly care to relive it today.
Right.
I promise you, if you think you do because it might be fun or cool or hip or whatever, you're wrong. I can't emphasize this enough, and I know I talk about it all the time. I probably sound like a broken record. Go look at Stalinist Russia. Go look at Maoist China after World War II and how those two came to power and what happened in those societies. Mass graves, and the first one to fill up the mass graves were the private property owners, were the middle class people who thought for themselves, acted for themselves, depended on themselves, and did not want their rights and their life and their liberty and their property starting with the government.
Right. Do you think that the mayor can actively block a law passed in the budget? Do you think even though it went through?
This gets into the idea of the executive versus the legislative. The city council would be kind of the legislative branch of Chicago, and the mayor would be kind of the executive branch of Chicago. And then we have some city court systems, but really it's the county that we're in for a court system here. So that's kind of an interesting facet of it. I think you have to be more granular about the situation than to just say, can he or can't he do this in any situation? The problem with this mayor is he'll pick the wrong thing to block.
Right.
Or
Like Bill said that it could. Bill said it could possibly be $100 million in revenue, and he's blocking that.
Yeah, and I would have to take, I haven't read through right before this podcast the specifics of what he's looking to block, but Tony Preckwinkle did not want CTU's endorsement. What does that tell you about Brandon and Stacy? What does that tell you about this brain trust that has just done everything they can to but it's because the education system is kind of a self-contained system. And because it's publicly subsidized, there's not many of them that are familiar with the idea of how do I go out and meet a payroll? What is the difference between, profit and loss? What OpEx is necessary versus isn't in order to keep this business going? Because they don't think about it that way. And what's dangerous about Brandon and Stacy not thinking about it that way is they teach all these kids not to think about it that way. They teach all these kids that the only time that you should care or do anything is when we tell you to go out and support Hamas.
Right.
And it's just, it's Looney Tunes.
It's so backwards. It's like it's no Law and Order over there. They don't believe in Law and Order. They believe in ideology, like in an opinion, huh?
They don't want Law and Order. Law and
Order.
They
don't want Law and Order. It's the craziest thing.
Law and Order to Stacy and Brandon is racist, and so it has to go away. And I understand. I'm the first person to admit that the system does not get it right all the time. It gets it terribly wrong in individual cases. All of that. I'm not saying we have some perfect system, but you're not going to trade the imperfections of capitalism for the pretend utopia of communism. Right. And that's where the disconnect is. And for a long time, I thought, what don't they get? They get it well enough. They want this place to crash because that's the only way to keep growing. How else are they going to get teachers who are paid $185,000 a year and have 4.5 months vacation? And no capitalist system would tolerate that. And so you start to see the dynamics of where the concern for the economic benefit of that elite few turns into the detriment of everybody else.
Right. No, that's true.
What's she snacking on?
Oh, it's just a piece of gum. It's a piece of gum.
I have a chewy yogurt granola bar. That's what got me. That's my breakfast. It gets me through the day. I highly recommend these. Call Chewy and see if we can get some advertising revenue now.
Julie, I'm trying to get him to go to jail. Um.
I'm talking about the granola bar, not the congressman.
Oh, okay. I'm about to say, yeah, I want him. I want Chuy Garcia out of here. Lupe
He's gone.
Castillo.
He's
Lupe
gone
Castillo.
soon.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
out of here soon.
But I don't want Patty Garcia to get it or Brian Citro Communist Lopez to get it. So we're going for Lupe Castillo in that district
Go
for
Lupe.
that.
Go
Go
Lupe.
Lupe. So, you have any closing statements? I think that I'm going to pray that the Save Act will pass to the Senate, so President Donald Trump can sign into law, especially um, with the midterms coming up. And I think that it's fair on both sides, on all sides, all political sides, and that will show some type of uh, allegiance to the Constitution for both sides. Because right now, the Democratic Party is not showing no allegiance to that U.S. Constitution. Matter of fact, they trying to run the country without the U.S. Constitution by paying off the judges who took an oath to the U.S. Constitution and the Bible, and they need to be arrested for real, for real.
Uh, it's clear to me that the Democrat Party today is a lot more concerned with bringing America into this sort of one global governing structure than they are with preserving the things that made all of the things that are good about America good. It's clear to me that in this election, the Republicans are the closest thing to traditional notions of we're all going to be our own nation. This is the American nation. We're going to have a federal government, a state government, a county government, city government in certain areas. If it gets that far down in a municipality, that the federal government, where it has authority, its authority is absolute. Where it doesn't have authority, it's up to the rest of you to figure it out for yourselves. And I think overall, although there have been some problems with that model of governance, it's still the best one that there is. Do we always get what we want out of the Republican Party? No. And I think because functionally the way politics is covered, the Republican Party is not much more than a protest vote against the Democrat Party. That's kind of what unites this party today.
Right.
And I'm really hopeful that we're going to start working on creating platforms and messaging for the audiences and the groups and the voters that we have not ever really made a serious concerted effort to say, this is why the Republican Party will benefit you. Here's a program that's going to work for you and why. We have to take the next step of a party as, what are we offering the people? And getting back to this idea that, there are some in the party who want to see Trump kneecapped in his last 2 years. There's no quicker way to do it than to muck up this SAVE Act thing and not pass it. Because there will be nothing more poisonous to Republican turnout across the country than failure to pass that act before the election. There will be nothing more poisonous to Republican morale. There will be nothing more poisonous to Republican unity than to fail to pass the SAVE Act.
I feel like if the Senate doesn't pass it, it's time to boycott. It's time to boycott for real. Like it's just time to like he needs to call a nation, a conservative, a MAGA, whatever they want to call it, MAGA, conservative, Republican, common sense. Like
that's
need
what
to call a massive boycott because
that's what the Democrats and the media want to call it. The Democrats and the media want to call it those things because that gets the Democrat side whipped. Oh, evil Republicans. It's common sense.
Right.
This is not a Republican Democrat. This is not even a political issue.
It's not.
Another thing we need to do to heal as a country is we need to stop the hyper partisanship and the hyper politicization of every single issue that's out there. Good schools is not a hyper partisan issue. Having a strong military that can act at a moment's notice and defend us is not some controversial partisan issue. The ability to access an electoral framework that the people can have confidence is not a partisan issue.
Right.
These are things that matter to all of us similarly, and we all benefit from equally. And we have to step away and say, what are the issues that are political, and what are the issues like roads that aren't crumbling, like lights that work at night, like police officers on the street fighting violent criminal repeat offenders. Those have only become hyper politicized because of our media landscape and because of the irresponsibility of the professional political class over the last decade.
No, you're right. No, you're definitely right about that. Well, if you or your cousins are in this city of Chicago or state of Illinois illegally and not trying to go back or fight ICE, please call subscription lawyer John Heiderscheidt so you can start the process because you cannot be over here and you are an illegal alien. It's just not going to work. Just like I cannot go and commit a crime and then, think that I'm going to not get arrested and charged. And if I am going to get arrested and charged, I need to go get a defense attorney. So then I will go get subscription lawyer John Heiderscheidt because this is what we have to do in this society. Okay, that's why we have attorneys. Now, some attorneys are terrible, but John Heiderscheidt is not a terrible attorney, and he can take care of your immigration laws, your immigration problems, and your criminal problems and your civil problems. But please retain an attorney if you are here in the city of Chicago, in the state of Illinois, and doing anything that's unlawful.
You need to know your rights, and my staff is great. I have great attorneys. I have great legal staff. We're used to dealing with people who are facing some of the most difficult moments in their life and helping them get through that and placing you in a better position than you were when you came into the office. So thanks for having me. I love doing this.
Yeah.
So I need to do next week's. It's a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll get a few more questions next week.
Yes, and I'll be in DC next week. So that's why I want to make sure we have our time together because we're going to the White House for the Black History Month reception. So I'll be live. So we'll do our checks and balances live in nation's capital.
Amazing. What an honor. Thank you for taking me with digitally. I can't wait to do it.
Yeah, so we're gonna post it ASAP so we can,
Awesome.
but we'll have some DC people tuning in, so that'll be cool.
Nice. So you're everywhere.
Right. You know what? I just hope that people are listening. I hope people are listening and understanding and doing their own research. You guys do not have to take, I'm not, I don't know everything, but I do know some numbers and I do know how to add. And I keep adding, and then I can't subtract anything because there's nothing to subtract because they keep adding and adding and adding and adding and then taking it for themselves. But they are subtracting it from the city to keep it going.
Well, and you know what? Our city is not going to be taken from us by these socialist bozos and yahoos and yo-yos. The time is done. This next election cycle for the city of Chicago, we're massively reducing CTU's influence in politics in this city. And you're already seeing that happen by, people who are up for election who don't want that endorsement. And we're getting rid of the socialists. We are getting the socialists out of office. It's beyond time. They need to go. They don't belong here. They screw everything up. Go back to the cozy comfort of academia and whine together there about how if only we had a communist utopia, everybody would be happy. It's never going to happen. It never has happened. We need to fix our problems in a capitalist framework, in a
Free
society that has
market.
free market principles, representative republic, where the representatives are chosen in democratically elected processes that are secure, that are safe, and that are standardized for everybody across the country. So we all know what we're participating in. And so that the people of Wyoming or the people of New York or the people of Mississippi can't disenfranchise the strength of the vote in other states, in Texas or in Louisiana or in Oklahoma or Kansas.
Right. That's it. That's that piece, y'all. All right. Please like, share, subscribe. I am going to put the link for the YouTube for checks and balances so we can get some people to start liking our page.
I hope so.
Right now. And they will. They will. We're getting, I think it's going to be good. We got to keep it like this because people really do not know a lot. It is not, and I don't fault them. You've got they've got people are raising their families. People are fighting, and not understanding what's going on because you've got the media saying one thing, and then you have a lot of grassroots organizations that are saying something different and showing the real evidence and the data and the contracts when the city of Chicago, when the mainstream and legacy media does not show anything. They can make up any of those polls. Like some of the polls that are coming from University of Chicago. University of Chicago is one of the corruptest universities on the planet. Everybody knows that. So, I don't really take any of their polls too seriously. I was surprised they had um, a conservative event. I was so happy to see that. So clearly it's changing, and that's because the new youth that are coming in. And, like it or not, Charlie Kirk. So, and that's just what it is. It has to be some type of opposition when it comes to our politics. And it doesn't have to be, I think people think the word op and opposition because of, especially in our music, the op and opposition, that's negative, for a shooter, all that stuff, all those type of things. But there's good opposition as well. And there's no opposition in this city to go against this machine. And the few Republicans that are in position that you would think that would be opposing a lot of these things that they're saying or doing, they are they are content with this state still being blue because of the city of Chicago and Lake County and some of the collar counties, is because they're still getting paid off of it. So as long as they're still getting paid off of it, it works for them. And I'm seeing that when you see the people who are willing to fight the corruption, fight the monopoly when it comes to the Democratic Party here, and then you see the ones that have been in position for so long and are upset and mad at my group because we are putting out the facts and we are challenging the machine, which they should have challenged the machine a long time ago.
It that structure is as weak as it's ever been. The time is right for being able to change the trajectory of this city. There are a lot of people in the business community who really want to take the city back in the direction that it should, and that's very important. I think the business community, for whatever reason, lost the will to stand up for itself between probably 2008 and 2024, let's say. So for 15 years, the business community, I think, just thought, oh, I'll go along and go along and go along because I don't want the publicity of these wackos outside my office screaming and yelling. And I mean, you see that in Target in Minneapolis, so
right. It's embarrassing.
But like
It's
for a
hard.
business, you don't want that. That's lost money. Who's going to that Target that day? Nobody. Nobody
Right.
is going to go like bother with that day. And so I think the business community in Chicago, especially like the upper echelons of business community, got so concerned with, I'm going to be polite and smile politely at all this craziness and it won't touch me.
Right.
And I think it's become clear through two clown act mayor administrations, two of them back to back, clown show circuses, that smiling politely at the nonsense is going to get you to a point where they walk in and say, this business is ours, now leave at gunpoint. And I think that the business community is really kind of putting together and advocating and working behind the scenes. What's hard for like leaders like you, especially, and people like me, I'm not going to put myself in the leadership class that you are, because you really are doing some
You are a
amazing
leader
work.
too now. No,
But
you are
you know,
very special in this movement.
I try to be, you know, and in addition to being supportive, I'd try to speak plainly and honestly, come what may, from doing it. But the word Republican in this city is like a dirty word. You know, it's like, and there's so much of that, how people feel and hear about this, that, you know, for a long time, I viewed politics more as like entertainment, I guess. And not that I thought it should be entertaining, but I would pick who I would vote for based on who I liked the most, maybe, or who I identified with the most, or who I thought I could most easily get along with. What I've sort of learned from getting more involved is this is closer to a religious choice for people than it is a practical. Yeah, there are swing voters, but it's a small majority of them. You know,
Right.
the
Right.
Democrats and the Republicans can count on 42% or whatever in the worst circumstances showing up and pulling the lever. And so there's more of like, I don't want to say fanaticism, but like a religious element to that. It's much harder to shake a religious belief than it is like I like Republicans or Democrats from an entertainment perspective. It's easier to change the channel than it is to change like, I'm going to go from Christian to Jewish today. It takes probably, some people never make that switch. A lot of people never switch their faith at all. And if it is switched in a family, usually it's like generationally, or you've married interculturally somewhere else and you've made that
Right.
decision. It's important to your family member. And that's great. That's wonderful. You know, if you want to do that, you should be able to do that. But you're like, well, and I think what you deserve so much credit for, everybody like you that's doing this advocacy work, Ms. Jackson, Danny C., others, Afro Elite, is that you're willing to stand up and take the very predictable nastiness from the other side, because at the end of the day, the truth is just the truth. And right now, the truth in Chicago politically is the Democrat Party abandoned the Black community probably 15 years ago, maybe 20, you know, and it was and the way they managed the migrant crisis, the way they created, manufactured, managed from, profited, and ruined the Black community with that migrant crisis was the exclamation point on the local Democrat Party saying, we don't care about you anymore. You don't matter. Because in the
Right.
broader rubric, we're moving to this one global structure. And in this one global structure, there are different faces that matter more.
Right. No, for real.
So, I mean, in this election, it's Republicans or socialism. And you're doing the
No.
hard work of advocating people and giving people permission to say, you know what I'm feeling is right. I don't have to listen to what ABC 7 tells me. I don't have to listen to what CBS 2 tells me. The Chicago Tribune does not walk down from Mount Sinai with the news from God like it's on the stone tablets.
Right.
You know, I know what I feel. I know what I see in my community. I know how aftercare programs have been reduced. I know how access to public structures and parks has been reduced. I know how the quality of my kids' education has gone downhill. I know how unsafe it is to walk down my street. And if I have to make the radical change of actively voting Republican this time around, I'm going to do it because that's the message of they'll get it.
Right. They'll get it.
Want to fix this place in one election cycle, elect 50 Republican alders and a Republican mayor. And believe me, the machinery around this place will get it real quick and it'll all be fixed.
Yeah, we have to send a clear message. Don't ever play with Chicago again. Don't you ever play with Chicago again.
Well, who does Chicago belong to? Does it belong to the city council and the mayor, or does it belong to the 3 million people who make it great and make it what it is?
Exactly.
And the answer is it belongs to us. And if you want, and I honestly, they're going to find that out in 2027. They're going to find that out in 2027. But, we have to be willing and strong enough to say, well, maybe Republican was a bad word 30 years ago, but it's not today.
Yeah, it's not.
And maybe Democrat was a good word 5 years ago, but it's not today.
Call me anything but a Democrat. You call me anything you want. Just don't call me no Democrat.
Not today. And maybe 10 or 15 years from now, the way society has changed and managed, maybe that'll change. I think people you have to be really focused on what is going to benefit me the most in this election cycle and pull the lever that way. Not because I've done it this way for 20 odd times before. Not because this is what my dad or my mom did. Not because socially I don't want to talk about how I voted a different way. Your vote is private. Lie to people about how you voted if you don't want to have the disc. Oh yeah, I voted Democrat, but make the right choice in the ballot booth. If you don't want to engage in the social conversation, you don't have to. You're not obligated to. Your vote is your voice, and it's your sacred moment civilly to say what you want. And that it seems so basic and it seems so minimal, but when you pick up the history books, it hasn't been around for more than 250 years. Everything else has been done at sword point.
Right. Oh, that's true. All right, y'all. Well, we will be back here next week. It'll be 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Central Time. And all hands on deck. Please like and subscribe and share. This is episode 4 of Checks and Balances with my co-host, John H., subscription lawyer. Heiderscheidt is his whole name, but I call him John H. And that's it. That's a wrap, y'all. See y'all next week.
Thanks, Zoe. It was a lot of fun.
Peace, y'all.